Even as Israel Defense Forces continue their progress destroying Hamas and their military, Israeli officials have confirmed that escaped Hamas terrorists remain a threat throughout the region. And according to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, the hunt for escaped Hamas terrorists remains a top priority to restore peace in Israel. And all this is coming at a time that the Biden administration is insisting on a post-war plan that includes Palestinians residing in Gaza under Arab leadership. This is what many people often refer to as a two-state solution. Well, joining me now from Jerusalem to discuss his reporting on Israel's war against Hamas is CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell. Chris, always great to have you on the program. Welcome back.
Great to be with you, Jody.
All right. So first of all, please, if you would, catch us up on the progress that the IDF has recently made in Rafah and throughout the entire Gaza Strip.
Well, I was just reading a report from one of the generals there, and he said they've made a significant progress there in Rafah. They've eliminated a number of terrorists and destroyed a lot of the infrastructure there in Rafah. And as you go through this last 8 or 9 months of war, Jody, you see the infrastructure there in Gaza was so extensive, where tunnels almost ubiquitous, almost every place you could go. And the amount of weapons that you could find in almost any place there in Gaza is really extraordinary. It just goes to show what's happening, what Hamas has been doing ever since 2007 when they took over Gaza. But right now, I would say that there's really kind of a pivotal moment right now. IDF has made much progress in Rafah. They're also just operating in a place called Khan Yunis, where some of Hamas has regrouped. So that's part of their battle plan right now in Gaza. But also there's a pivoting right now, I guess, towards the north. What's going to happen with Hezbollah? I think that's the question, the main question on most people's minds right now. What's going to happen? Is there going to be a major escalation in the 8-month war that's been going on with Hezbollah? It's been a low-scale war, but there's a concern it could escalate dramatically.
You would hope that Hezbollah, having witnessed what's happened to Hamas, would think twice before they escalate all of this. But even in the midst of this time where the Hamas military capabilities have certainly been decimated, it appears, what are the remaining threats with these escaped terrorists? Is that obviously is a serious enough issue the Prime Minister is calling attention to it?
Right. What it will look like right now, Jody, is more like an insurgency, something people would remember back in Iraq, an insurgency that would be planting IEDs, limited terror attacks, hit and run strikes. So there's a concern that once the main infrastructure of Hamas and the battalions have been eliminated, there is going to be an insurgency that could create a problem for the IDF there. And to your point about the two-state solution, you know, the Biden administration may want a two-state solution. They've been advocating it for many, many months, but there's really no appetite here in Israel for that. The Prime Minister Netanyahu is against that, and there's many people that after October 7th, there's a whole new way of looking at the Palestinian Authority and certainly Hamas. And so it's unlikely that there'll be a support here in Israeli public for a two-state solution, despite what the Biden administration wants.
Yeah, so let's go down that path, Chris, if we can, a little bit further. I mean, obviously, Prime Minister Netanyahu's plan after the war is on a absolute collision course, as you just referenced, with the Biden administration. So where is all this going to lead? What do you think ultimately? Ultimately, Israel will have the final voice, I'm saying, but what does that do with relations between Israel and the United States?
Well, this is one of the things that's really strained relations with the Biden administration for many months, and that was this is one of the main disagreements between the coalition with Netanyahu and the Biden administration, among many. And I would just add, you know, just the other day, Representative McCall from Texas said that there's 7 weapon systems that the Biden administration is holding back from Israel. So that's another big concern. But to the point about the two-state solution, the Palestinian Authority is what the Biden administration has been calling for, in part, that they would be one of the people overseeing Gaza after the war. The Palestinian Authority, if you look at their statements in public, many people see them just one step below Hamas. They consider this a religious war. They talk frequently about replacing Israel, about returning to places like Haifa and Tel Aviv. So in terms of the Palestinian Authority, there would be very little appetite for that here. And yet this is one of the avenues that the Biden administration is calling for. Now, the big question, Jody, really is going to be what happens after the day after, because there's going to be a lot of people that are vying for what will happen. Certainly Biden administration, you would hope that Israel would have the final say, but there's a lot of people that want to actually have a say in what's going to happen the day after the war at Gaza is over.
Absolutely. So what is the general temperament of Israelis with the U.S. elections approaching and a possible new administration?
Well, I think a lot of Israelis, like a lot of Americans, were dismayed by the performance by President Joe Biden and see him as a weakened leader. And one of the maxims here, the people that rely on here in the Middle East is you want to project strength. Anytime you project weakness, it fills a vacuum. So I think in terms of an Israeli point of view from in the Middle East that's surrounded by its enemies, they want an American president that's going to project strength, resolve. And the way the Biden administration is really opposing Israel during these last few months really sends a signal to Israel's enemies, to Hezbollah, and particularly Iran. So I think from an Israeli point of view, they see a weakened president in his performance last night, as well as his many actions against the Jewish state, as something that's very, very concerning to them here in Israel.
Well, Chris Mitchell, we can't thank you enough. CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief, thank you for staying up late and for joining us yet again on Washington Watch. We appreciate it a great deal.